The doctor told me I had late-stage lung cancer. 3 months left at best. Nathan didn't sleep that night. He held me so tightly I could barely breathe, sobbing as if he were the one dying. The very next day he made a shocking decision. He sold the company he had spent 10 years building to his partner, Derek Shaw, at a price far below its market value. He said, "Rachel, I just want to spend whatever time we have left seeing the world with you. Every place you've ever dreamed of." So we packed our bags and set off on a whirlwind trip around the globe. 6 months passed. And strangely I started feeling better. Day by day my strength returned. Then one afternoon while organizing files on Nathan's laptop, I stumbled upon an email. By the time I finished reading it, my fingers had gone numb. My whole body trembled. From the moment I was handed that diagnosis report, it had all been a carefully orchestrated lie. Every year I got a routine checkup around the same time. Lately I'd been feeling unusually exhausted, but I blamed it on work stress and burnout. That day the doctor asked me to come into his office alone. As soon as he started talking my heart sank. Nathan sat beside me, his hand gripping mine, his face pale as a sheet. The doctor pulled out the report, his voice as flat as if he were reading a grocery list. "Miss Quinn, I'm sorry to inform you that we've found a malignant tumor in your lung. And it's in the late stages." My mind went completely blank. It felt like being shoved off the edge of a high-rise with no warning. Nathan's voice cracked. "How long does she have?" "Given the rate of spread," the doctor replied without blinking, "around 3 months." Then he stood up to take a phone call, saying as he walked off, "You may want to consider palliative care options to ease the pain." Nathan sat frozen, his grip tightening until his knuckles turned white. And I strangely felt calm. Like I was just an audience member watching someone else's tragedy unfold on stage. 3 months. 90 days. That was all I had left. On the drive home, Nathan didn't say a single word. His hands on the steering wheel looked rigid, like they'd been carved from stone. When we got back he wrapped his arms around me and broke down. His tears soaked into my shoulder as he choked out, "Rachel, you're going to be okay. We'll go to the Mayo Clinic, Zurich, anywhere, any place that might help." I stroked his back, whispering, "We all live. We all die. I've made my peace with that." But I hadn't. I was only 40. That night I woke up early. Nathan was out on the balcony smoking. The moonlight cast a pale glow on him, making him look like a lost little boy. A week later he took my hand and said he'd made up his mind. He was selling the company and taking me around the world. I was stunned. That company had been his life. Originally his father's, yes, but Nathan had poured a decade of his soul into it. It was recently valued at over $10 million. "You're out of your mind. You can't do that. We can make more money. But if I lose you, I won't want to go on." He kissed my forehead gently. "Rachel, I just want to see the world with you. See you smile. See you alive." I broke down. I never imagined he'd give up everything just to be by my side. But I still shook my head. "We can travel. But not like this. You can't throw away everything you've built. That's your dream." He pulled me close and whispered, "I've already missed too much. I can rebuild a company. I can't get back a single minute we lose." And just like that he called his longtime business partner, Derek Shaw. Everything happened faster than I could have imagined. Nathan sold his shares in the company for $8 million, despite it being valued at well over 10. I nearly lost it. "You got swindled. Derek's robbing you blind." But Nathan just looked at me calmly. At least he was willing to take it over so quickly. What matters now isn't the money. It's getting on the road right now. 3 days later the deal closed. Nathan walked away with a full case of cash. I'll never forget the look on Derek's face that day. So smug, like he'd just pulled off the deal of the century. And in Nathan's eyes? A quiet kind of peace, like he'd finally let go. In the Maldives, we lay side by side on a hammock strung between 2 palms. The sun warmed our faces, the breeze played through our hair. The sky looked edited, so blue it was surreal. The water was clear enough to see the white sand beneath. Nathan leaned in and whispered, "Look at this ocean. It's so beautiful it makes everything else worth leaving behind." He'd planned an extravagant route across the globe. The Maldives, Paris, Rome, Barcelona, Istanbul, Bangkok. At every stop he booked the best hotels, hunted down local food, sometimes even from street vendors. He made every moment feel like a gift. What stuck with me most? Every single day without fail he handed me a small white pill. "This is a special treatment from Switzerland," he told me. "It's experimental, but many late-stage patients have extended their lives with it. We have to try." I didn't ask many questions. When you believe you're dying, even a sugar pill can feel like salvation. And strangely, my body began to respond. That constant heavy fatigue started to lift. I felt stronger. I even managed to hike up the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Nathan and I stood at the top, watching the city lights flicker like stars scattered across the earth. But one day in Paris, I suddenly coughed up blood at a small walk-in clinic. Nathan panicked. Within the hour, he'd arranged for a top-tier private hospital. The French doctor stared at my CT scans, frowning. Then slowly he asked, "Are you sure these belong to you?" I thought it was a translation issue and didn't pay much attention. When the final report came back, he told us it was just a case of pneumonia, paired with severe fatigue. Nothing life-threatening. Just rest and recovery. Nathan went still as the translator repeated the diagnosis. His face went pale for a few seconds. I touched his arm gently. "What's wrong?" He smiled almost too quickly. "Nothing. Probably a mix-up in translation. What matters is, you're feeling better, right?" That night, I woke up early and found the bed beside me empty. I instinctively wrapped myself in a coat and stepped out onto the balcony. There he was, talking quietly on the phone, voice low and tense. "What do you mean the drug was only supposed to hold for 6 months? It's breaking down after 3. Fine. I'll increase the dosage. But she can't find out. She must not know." My stomach dropped. He turned around and saw me. Panic flashed in his eyes. He hung up immediately. "Rachel, you're up already? Were you on the phone?" "Just old business stuff. The company handover's not fully settled." He walked over and pulled me into his arms. "You should be resting, love. Don't worry." I nodded, saying nothing more. But something inside me had shifted. A quiet dread crept in, cold and slow, wrapping itself around my heart. I couldn't name it yet, but something was deeply wrong. The next day we flew to Rome. While dining at a rustic old restaurant, we unexpectedly ran into Derek Shaw. He froze for a second, visibly surprised, then quickly plastered on a dazzling smile oozing charm. "What are the odds?" he beamed. "I'm in town for an investment conference. Small world, huh? Didn't expect to bump into you two in Italy." He glanced at me. "You look great, Rachel. Looks like this trip is doing wonders." Nathan offered a mild smile. "She's been getting better every day." The meal was awkward, to say the least. The two of them kept trading glances, tight, unreadable. Halfway through dinner, I caught Derek slipping Nathan a flash drive under the table, so fast I almost missed it. Back at the hotel, I asked, "What was that?" "Nothing important. Just some old project files. Derek's still helping me tie up loose ends with a few clients." "But you already sold the company. Why would you need to deal with that?" He kissed my forehead. "There are still contracts with my name on them. Legal stuff I have to wrap up. Don't worry. We're going to the Vatican tomorrow. It's like stepping into a dream." I didn't push further. But that night I pretended to be asleep. He slipped the flash drive into his laptop. Lying in bed, I cracked one eye open. I saw him scrolling through documents. The titles glowed on the screen. Share transfer plan, profit allocation draft. My chest tightened. The next morning I asked casually, "What were you looking at last night?" He kept his eyes on the suitcase he was packing. "Just some old contracts." Then he changed the subject fast. "Come on, get dressed. We've got Vatican tickets." He was dodging too hard. A week later we landed in Barcelona. Nathan had grown more erratic. Late night calls on the balcony, whispering into the dark. Sometimes I'd wake at 3 a.m. and find him pacing with his phone. He also started checking my pill bottle obsessively, making sure I'd taken my medication. I began to cut the dosage quietly, half one day, none the next. And what happened stunned me. Nothing. No relapse. No symptoms. In fact, I felt sharper than I had in months. My body was strong. My mind clearer than ever. Then came the moment everything unraveled. Nathan was in the shower when his phone rang. The screen lit up with a name that made my stomach drop. Derek Shaw. I hesitated for just a second, then answered. Derek's voice came through, sharp and smug. "Nathan, the transfer paperwork's done. As soon as Rachel passes, the company's all ours. I've already got the dividend lined up, ready to wire. My body turned to ice. I could barely hold the phone. Then a pause. Hello, Nathan? You there? I said nothing. A beat later, Derek hung up. 5 minutes passed. Nathan stepped out of the bathroom, steam rising off his skin, a towel wrapped around his waist. He saw me sitting there, frozen on the edge of the bed. What's wrong, Rachel? I forced a smile. My throat burned. Nothing. Just tired, I think. I didn't tell him what I'd heard. That night I lay beside him stiff as stone. His warmth now felt like the brush of a serpent's scales. I had to know the truth. On our last day in Barcelona, Nathan said he wanted to pick up a few souvenirs. As soon as he walked out the door, I opened his laptop. I knew the password. Our wedding anniversary. A man who manipulated me into giving up my shares, using our anniversary as a password. The irony was laughable. I found the flash drive and plugged it in. Folders popped up immediately, dozens of emails and contracts. My hands shook as I opened one. Nathan, congrats on getting Rachel to sign the transfer forms. Next step is replacing the diagnosis records. Once we hit the 6-month mark, your $6 million dividend is locked in. My fingers trembled. My heart thudded like a war drum. I kept digging. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have imagined. I had been the second largest shareholder. Even as his wife, Nathan had no legal right to touch my shares. So he and Derek found a doctor to forge a terminal cancer diagnosis. They crafted a lie so perfect it pushed me to the edge of death. Emotionally, mentally. The so-called Swiss miracle drug was nothing but vitamin pills laced with sedatives. A way to dull my awareness, erode my will, and coax me into gracefully handing over everything. But the worst part? They never meant for me to die. If I made a miraculous recovery, they'd retain all my shares. Then split the secret dividends under the radar. Derek, having acquired a $10 million company for 8, would pocket millions without lifting a finger. I reached the last email. My stomach churned so hard I nearly vomited. 10 years of marriage. A decade of trust. It had all been a setup. I forced myself to stay calm. I snapped photos of every email and contract. Then I closed the files, ejected the drive, and rearranged everything exactly as I'd found it, like nothing ever happened. When Nathan returned, I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window sipping coffee. Hey, sweetheart, he said gently. So, have you decided? Istanbul or Bangkok for our next stop? I turned and smiled at him, soft, natural, effortless. I was just thinking, I kind of miss home. Can we go back for a few days? Just to rest a bit. He blinked, clearly caught off guard. No. Why? I miss our bed. And I want a real dinner at our table. Just for a few nights, okay? I fluttered my lashes playfully. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right. If you want to go back, we'll go. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and sent an encrypted message. Something's gone very wrong. I'll explain once I'm back. Don't tell anyone. The moment we returned to the States, I reached out to Alexine Rivers. She used to work as a federal prosecutor in the Financial Crimes Division. Now she runs a private legal practice that specializes in asset protection for high-net-worth women. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Just asked me to recount everything, every file I saw on Nathan's computer, every word I remembered. I typed out a summary and sent it. Her reply came back fast. Just one sentence. You won't be safe unless you sue. We met in her private office. After reviewing all the materials, she closed her laptop with a quiet snap. You've got enough for a civil suit, she said, expression unreadable. But if you want him to go down hard, you'll need 2 things. Your original medical records and the identity of the doctor who diagnosed you. I nodded. I told her I'd find them. From a drawer, she pulled out a small voice recorder and a pinhole camera, handed them to me. Get him talking. Raw, direct. It's the only way it'll hold up. Nathan thought I was just trying to reclaim my rhythm now that I felt better. I played the part well. Shopping with him, eating out, browsing for new luggage. I even leaned on his shoulder during breaks, all warmth and ease. He let his guard down. I've been wondering, I said one afternoon, how did I recover so quickly? That medicine was that effective. Nathan paused, then smiled. The doctor I hired was one of our consultants. He designed a tailored treatment plan. Which hospital is he affiliated with? He's not in a hospital. He's an independent medical advisor. I nodded thoughtfully. I'd like to do another scan. Just to know for sure where I stand. Can you help me set up a meeting with him? You trust him so much, I'd like to hear it straight from him. He hesitated, then nodded. 3 days later I met the so-called doctor. He wore a white lab coat and greeted me inside a modest building labeled Clinical Research Center. His tone was cautious, overly precise. He kept repeating phrases like, "This treatment was based on your initial report, and the medication is an experimental compound, not yet FDA approved." He said they simply optimized the treatment environment. I smiled and asked, "So, did you personally diagnose my lung cancer?" He paused. "I only managed the medication. I didn't handle the initial diagnostics." "Are you a licensed physician?" Another pause. "I have extensive research experience." I pulled out my phone and opened the state medical board's website. His name appeared with a clear note beside it, "Unlicensed." His eyes darted away. "I'm afraid I can't disclose too much." I nodded like I didn't understand, just a curious patient. While he turned around to tidy some paperwork, I quietly snapped a photo of the name tag on his chest and the office plaque by the door. Dr. L. Myers, experimental consultant. That afternoon I delivered the photos and the recording to Alexine. She took one look and said calmly, "Good work. That's enough. The criminal case can move forward now." That evening Nathan sat on the couch watching the news, acting like everything was perfectly normal. I sat across from him, staring at the wine glass in his hand, watching the deep red swirl like something waiting to stain. "What's on your mind?" he asked. I smiled. Not too much. Not too little. I wasn't going to confront him yet. Bringing Nathan down wouldn't happen through rage or accusations. I needed signatures, transactions, a paper trail, each step clean, legal, and weaponized. So I said very little that night, because I had bigger moves to prepare. 2 mornings later, over breakfast, I spoke up. "I couldn't sleep last night. I kept thinking, since I'm getting better, maybe it's time we restructured our finances." Nathan lowered his coffee mug and looked at me. "What kind of restructuring?" "Well," I said lightly, "we never did finalize that post-nuptial agreement. And now with the company gone, it's mostly cash. I think it makes sense to consolidate, give ourselves a little security net. I'm not planning to die, but we should still be prepared for the unexpected." He paused, then said slowly, "Why now?" "I don't really see the point. I still have some money of my own," I said softly. "If something happened to me suddenly, I'd want it to go to you. That's all." I gave him a smile, carefully measured, just the right mix of warmth and trust. He wavered just as I expected. "All right. We can look into it. But let's use someone we know. I don't want outside lawyers involved." "No," I shook my head. "We'll use my attorney. I trust her. She's meticulous and represents my side." He clearly didn't like it, but after a beat he nodded. I called Alexine immediately. She understood the plan before I finished speaking. She personally drafted 2 documents, a memorandum consolidating our marital assets, and a secondary clause agreement outlining designated inheritance terms. Buried within was a crucial line. If either party is found guilty of fraud, the agreement is nullified and all assets frozen pending investigation. "If he signs this," Alexine told me, "we can freeze every one of his domestic accounts with a single filing. All you need to do is get his signature." We met at a well-established private law firm. Nathan showed up in full business attire, scanning the room the second he walked in. His eyes landed on Alexine, wary. She said nothing, just slid the documents across the table. "Take your time." I sat close to him, flipping pages casually. "Let's roll that Miami condo into this too, yeah? No point keeping loose ends." He scanned the clauses, lips tightening when he reached the line. "Due diligence and independent consent clause." "Is this necessary?" he asked, almost irritated. "If you've done nothing wrong," I said with a smile, "this won't hurt you. I'm signing the exact same thing. It's fair." He stared at the page for a long 10 minutes. Then slowly he signed. That evening I suggested, "Let's celebrate. We've both been so stressed lately." He agreed, no suspicion in his voice. I had already arranged to meet Alexine at the bank afterward. We went to his favorite Italian place. I ordered his favorite red wine. Halfway through the bottle I faked a small dizzy spell. I'm gonna lie down for a bit, I murmured. He was tipsy, grinning, completely off guard. Back at the hotel, I urged him to take a shower. As soon as I heard the water running, I scanned the signed agreements and sent them to Alexine, who immediately filed the freeze order. Within 15 minutes, all of Nathan's accounts, across 3 domestic banks, were locked down. He walked out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, still glowing. You know, he said, I should have taken you to that restaurant ages ago. Felt like we were newlyweds again. I smiled and nodded. Said nothing. The next morning, as he reached for his phone to move funds, I stood in the kitchen pouring coffee. He stormed in. What the hell did you do? What? My accounts. They're frozen. I don't know, I said, blinking innocently. Didn't we just sign consolidation paperwork yesterday? Maybe the bank's verifying something. He narrowed his eyes. Did you pull something behind my back? I tilted my head. Your lawyer didn't see anything wrong, did he? I'm just a recovering patient, Nathan. What could I possibly pull off? His face went pale. He fell silent. Because he knew. This wasn't a mistake. It was a trap. And he just stepped into the first one. What he didn't know was that it was only the beginning. Nathan was spiraling. He called every contact he had, banks, wealth managers, offshore advisors, but each attempt was blocked. He tried to reach Derek too, unaware that Derek had already caught the scent of danger. 3 days later, it was Derek who contacted me asking to talk in person. I agreed. We met at a quiet golf club cafe. He walked in wearing sunglasses and a tailored suit, but his guarded expression gave away the tension behind the polished exterior. Rachel, I'm not here to fight, he said, lowering his voice. I think there's been some misunderstanding. There has, I replied calmly, lifting my coffee. I mistook the people around me for family. Turns out I was just a gateway to equity. He hesitated. Nathan went too far. But you can still walk away from this. I gave him a thin smile, said nothing. He leaned in. The share transfer was done by the book. Signatures, contracts, procedures. Everything's legal. Is that the word you want to stick with? I asked, staring straight at him. Because I've got your emails with Nathan, voice recordings, and a copy of your consulting contract with that so-called doctor. If that's your definition of legal, then we've got very different dictionaries. He shifted in his seat, leaned back, and lowered his voice even more. What do you want? I stared at him. Where did your multi-million-dollar dividend come from? His pupils narrowed. Kept going. You hid the source behind a private investment fund, then funneled it through a Cayman shell company, and back into a domestic account via a charitable trust under your wife's name. I traced the whole route. Alexine has it prepped for Treasury's anti-money laundering unit. His fingers tapped the table, cycling through 3 different expressions in a single minute. Rachel, he said eventually, let's not make this ugly. I can return part of the money. You drop the lawsuit. We both walk away. I leaned in and paused the recorder in my coat pocket. Derek, I said quietly, if you really didn't want things to get ugly, you wouldn't have looked for surveillance when you walked through the door. His face turned to stone. I stood. I don't want your money. I want your testimony. He clenched his jaw. That's blackmail. No, I said, it's leverage. Cooperate or enjoy prison. I gave him 48 hours. I took nothing with me, but the next morning Alexine received an anonymous email. It contained the first batch of wire transfer screenshots and, crucially, a scanned copy of a life insurance policy. That policy was the smoking gun. Nathan had taken out a high-value life insurance policy on me shortly after I was diagnosed. The beneficiary? Himself. The policy date was 1 week after the medical report. But the signature on the document wasn't mine. Alexine examined it and said just one thing. They played this dirty. We'll play it clean. That night, Nathan came home carrying takeout, looking worn down. You didn't tell me you were going out, I said. Had to take care of a few things. His voice was low. The bank says, maybe it was a system error. I nodded, pretending to accept the lie. He sat across from me, eyes darting, his words cautious. He was beginning to suspect, but he didn't know Derek had already flipped. And he had no idea that by morning, I'd be walking into court with everything I needed to file. That dinner would be his last taste of freedom. Nathan could sense it, his control slipping. So he started to rebuild a surface-level calm. He suggested dinners, long walks, even another relaxing getaway. I played along, smiling, nodding. Behind the scenes, Alexine's team worked overnight, assembling a devastating package. Forged medical records, insurance fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to defraud, unauthorized transfers, forged signatures, identity manipulation. 7 felony-level charges. Any one of them could ruin him. But we needed one more piece. The original handwriting sample for forensic comparison. I remembered Nathan's pride in his old fountain pen, the one he never let anyone else touch. He once said, "The way this pen writes, it's like me. Unmistakable." So I baited him. "That life insurance policy," I said casually, "wasn't that supposed to have my signature?" "Funny, I don't remember signing it." He paused. "You were sick. I signed for you. But you said it was okay." I said it was okay? I laughed softly. I barely knew what pills I was taking. He didn't respond, just changed the subject. That night when he was asleep, I searched his office. The pen was in the bookshelf drawer, right where I remembered. I grabbed it along with several old verifiable signature samples and delivered them to Alexine. She got them to a forensic analyst that morning. By the next day we had our confirmation. The signature on the insurance policy was a traced forgery. Definitively not mine. After that day, Nathan stopped speaking to me. He grew restless, glued to his phone, pacing the kitchen late into the night, unable to sleep. By morning he had moved out. A week passed without seeing him. Then came the counterattack. Nathan called Alexine's firm, requesting a private meeting. The receptionist blocked him cold. After that, he began leaking stories, claiming I was mentally unstable, had a history of psychiatric medication, suffered from paranoid delusions, and was now erratic from withdrawal. When the rumors reached me, I let out a bitter laugh. Of course. He was trying to shove me back into the role of the sick one. Alexine only said, "Perfect." He made his move. Time to show our hand. I texted Nathan just one line. "Let's talk." He replied quickly, suggesting we meet at the bar in an old downtown hotel. I arrived on the dot. He was already there, a drink in hand, expression composed, too composed. "Rachel," he began, "this doesn't have to go to court. We can settle this. Name your price." I didn't answer. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out 2 printed documents. The first was a copy of his life insurance policy, complete with the handwriting analysis results. The second was the anonymous transcript from Derek, in which he explicitly stated Nathan was the architect of the scheme, and he merely executed orders. Nathan's face darkened as he scanned the pages. He didn't touch them. "What do you want?" he asked flatly. I looked him in the eye. "Wire back every cent you stole to the original company account. Issue a public admission that you fabricated my diagnosis. Revoke all unauthorized transactions under my name. Hand over Derek's bank transfer logs. And last, submit to criminal investigation." He stared at me. "You're insane." "Then let a judge decide that." He stood up to leave. I spoke to his back, calm and deliberate. "If you try to destroy evidence or leave the country, you won't sleep tonight." That evening, Alexine received confirmation. Nathan's passport was flagged and his emergency exit application had been denied. At sunrise the next day, I met Alexine on the courthouse steps. Together we filed the lawsuit with full supporting documentation. My hand didn't tremble. My eyes were ice. On the day of the hearing, Nathan showed up in a navy blue suit, stiff and tight-faced. He'd already cycled through 3 different legal teams, landing on the most expensive one he could find. They were hoping to stall, dilute, delay, anything to soften the blow. I sat across from him at the plaintiff's table, Alexine by my side, a thick stack of evidence in front of us. The first item entered into record, the handwriting expert's analysis. The witness took the stand and testified plainly. The signature on the life insurance policy does not match Ms. Quinn's known handwriting. Stroke patterns, pressure curves, angle of entry, all inconsistent. Preliminary conclusion: forged by imitation. Nathan's attorney immediately objected. She was under heavy medication at the time, he claimed. The signature may have been assisted while she was cognitively impaired. The judge frowned. "Is there a signed authorization document?" The lawyer paused. "No written consent, Your Honor." The defendant claims she gave verbal approval. Alexine stood smoothly. So we are to understand, she said, that the defendant unilaterally signed a $5 million life insurance policy, listing himself as the sole beneficiary, during a period when the plaintiff was heavily medicated, and did so without any written consent or record? Silence from the defense. Then came the second piece of evidence, the audio recordings. In court, 2 key clips were played. The first, Derek's voice at our golf club meeting. Nathan went too far. But you can still walk away. The second, a clip from Nathan and Derek's intercepted phone call. Once she's gone, the company's ours. The moment that line echoed through the courtroom speakers, Nathan's entire expression cracked. He turned toward me. And in that instant I saw it. Something inside him collapsed. Nathan's lawyer tried to have the recordings excluded, arguing they had been obtained without consent. But the judge ruled that as defensive evidence gathered under credible threat, the material was lawful and admissible. The recordings would stand as primary evidence in the trial. Then came Derek. The court had compelled his testimony. He entered pushing a cart stacked with documents, no longer smug, just avoidant, his eyes fixed anywhere but forward. After taking the oath, he read from a prepared statement in a voice flat and deliberate. I acknowledge my participation in a financial fraud scheme targeting Ms. Rachel Quinn. I conspired with Nathan Quinn in orchestrating the forced transfer of corporate shares, the fabrication of medical records, and the submission of a fraudulent life insurance policy. The principal architect of the scheme was Nathan Quinn. The courtroom held its breath. A full 30 seconds of silence passed. The judge scanned the room. Do you have anything to add? Derek shook his head. In that moment, Nathan lost every remaining avenue of escape. During the recess, Nathan approached me in the courthouse corridor. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, deflated like a message in a bottle bobbing in the tide, unable to land. Then finally his voice came low and hollow. I'm sorry. I stopped and looked at him. This man who'd once taken me around the world while I believed I was dying, now standing with nothing left but his breath and a crumbling name. Are you sorry? I asked. Because you mean it or because it might shave time off your sentence? He opened his mouth but couldn't find words. You had your chance, I told him. That night in Paris I saw you smoking on the balcony and I believed you were scared of losing me. Now I know you were just afraid your payout wouldn't come through. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. 2 weeks later the verdict came down. Nathan Quinn was found guilty of insurance fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to misappropriate joint marital assets. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison, no parole, ordered to forfeit illicit gains and compensate damages to the plaintiff in full. Derek Shaw received a 3-year sentence, 2 years suspended. He was fined $1 million and barred from serving on any corporate board for 5 years. Alexine initiated the asset recovery process. The $8 million Nathan had moved was placed under court-supervised trust management. Remaining overseas accounts were frozen and pending investigation. The company was gone, but I had salvaged the core of what I'd built. That night there was no champagne, no quiet toast, no speeches. I went home alone. I locked away my passport, shut off my phone, burned the copy of the insurance contract. Then I sat in the living room until sunrise. The next morning I closed every joint account tied to Nathan. Then I went to the city clerk's office and had my marital status legally changed to terminated. There was no press conference, no media interviews, no hashtags or comment sections to scroll through. But I did register new business. Not NQ Biotech. Not anything that sounded like a tech conglomerate. The name was simple, R41. I told Alexine, R is for Rachel. 41 was the lowest my body temperature dropped when I thought I was dying. Now I wake up every morning at 7. I'm at my desk by 8. No one here knows what I've survived. Before I sign any contract I read it 3 times. Not because I distrust others, but because I finally understand something. The people most likely to be taken advantage of are the ones who assume they never will be. Nathan wasn't a glitch in the system. He was the system. A crack in the foundation just waiting for water to seep in. I will never live in that crack again. I don't need anyone to tell me I'm strong, or brave, or inspiring. Those words mean nothing to me anymore. I care about one thing. My life is now signed by me. Not by them. Not by my past. Not even by my pain. Only me. Nathan first understood the weight of time on his third day inside. There were no smartphones, no watches, just an old analog wall clock bolted above the common room. He sat in the corner, gnawing on a rock-hard slice of bread, watching the minute hand tick forward. Each click felt like a small amputation. Outside, he had once micromanaged entire project cycles across continents. He'd juggled 5 law firms, 3 investment funds, hopped between French and Swiss time zones without missing a beat. Now he counted time by pressing a borrowed pen into the soft flesh of his palm, 1 dot at a time. When he first arrived, he tried to hold on to his dignity. He cut his hair, kept himself clean, introduced himself with measured poise and clarity. He thought that if he stayed composed and rational, the system would recognize him as a man of structure and self-discipline. That illusion lasted a week. 3 times in those 7 days, someone shoved his head into the communal sink, once for talking like a CO. So he learned. He learned to lower his eyes. To read a man's face before he opened his mouth. Eventually he learned to stop speaking altogether. Logic had no purchase here. This was a place of scent and stare, of tension in shoulders and the angle of a step. You knew who feared you, who didn't, and who wanted to crush you, before a single word passed between you. In the 3rd week after sentencing, they assigned him to the archive room, dusty stacks of old newspapers and case files. He resisted at first. But then he discovered it was the only place where no one tried to talk to him. So he stayed. Every day he unpacked old boxes. Civil mediations, custody disputes, bankruptcy filings. The kind of cases he once skimmed past, barely a flicker of attention. But the more he read, the more he understood. The world wasn't a game of winners and losers. Most people were just trying not to drown. He thought about Rachel. She wasn't a legal strategist. She didn't play markets or manipulate systems. But she was the kind of woman who, once she set her course, would march through ankle-deep mud until she made it out. He remembered the look on her face at the bank, the way she said, "Freeze his accounts." There wasn't an ounce of hesitation in her voice. She hadn't looked like the Rachel he remembered. He wondered, if that night on the balcony in Paris after his cigarette he had said one true thing, would the ending have been different? But deep down he knew. He hadn't wanted to save the marriage. He just hadn't expected Rachel to hit back. He especially hadn't expected her to strike harder, cleaner, and faster than he ever had. He tried to write to her. 6 drafts. He tore up 5. The last one was just 4 lines. No apology. Just this. I don't need your forgiveness. I just want you to know I see you now. You're just as cold and calculating as I ever was. The letter came back unopened. The prison mailroom clerk told him the recipient had filed a no-contact request. He laughed. Of course she had. That was Rachel's style. She didn't throw down final cards. She didn't give you exits or stage cues. She didn't seek revenge. She just walked off stage and locked the script behind her. After that, Nathan stopped trying to reach anyone. When his lawyer came to discuss appeal options, Nathan only asked one thing. Can you shorten my term by transferring me out of state? The lawyer looked confused. Why? Nathan said, because this place is too close to her. On the other side of it all was Derek. He had thought he'd get off easy. Or, at the very least, he'd finesse things the way he always had, behind closed doors with whispered deals and handshake settlements. He never expected Rachel to walk his name straight into a federal investigation. And he definitely didn't expect Nathan to throw him under the bus in open court. After the conviction, he didn't go to prison. But he lost nearly everything else. By court order, he was barred from holding any executive role for 5 years. The investors who used to slap his back and toast his deals now wouldn't even return his texts. He moved out of his gated villa and into a furnished short-term apartment. To pay off the penalties and taxes from unsealed accounts, he was forced to liquidate every asset with resale value. The Bentley was towed weeks ago. These days he rode a bike to the grocery store. But what hit hardest wasn't the financial collapse. It was the silence. The void of social currency. He realized no one ever really wanted to hear what he had to say, they just wanted proximity to power. Back then everything he said earned nods, laughs, agreements. Now when he spoke it felt like talking into a canyon. He tried reaching out to Rachel once. It wasn't to apologize, he still couldn't bring himself to do that. He just wanted to know if she'd left even a crack open. If there was any version of her that still honored the old game of you stab me I stab you but we both stay in the room. He didn't dare call. He just emailed her 2 lines. I know you won. Give me a way to exit this with some grace. He waited a week. No reply. On the 8th day a formal response arrived from Alexine's office. The language was crisp, surgical. Any further attempt to contact our client will result in an immediate petition for a restraining order. Derek stared at the message and let out a dry, empty laugh. That's when it hit him. Rachel was colder than any of them had ever been. Not cruel. Not vindictive. She didn't strike. She erased. No vengeance. No gloating. Just an eternal perimeter he'd never cross again. He didn't reach out again. 2 months later he landed a marginal role at a second-rate business consultancy. His title sounded impressive, but his job was to advise desperate startups on how to look fundable without any real leverage. Clients were few, budgets were tight, and the founders he met were more interested in discounts than insight. He tried scheduling lunches with old contacts, but they were always booked. Always out of town. Always let's circle back in Q3. Sometimes he still dreamed of that day, the fantasy where the $10 million hit the account. In the dream Nathan was beside him, grinning. We won, Nathan would say, raising a glass. He always woke up mid-reach, fingers curled toward a bonus notification that would never arrive.